You're joining us now, Colorado Rising Action. Lindsey, how are you?
Hi, Lindsey.
Welcome.
I'm good. Good to be on with you guys.
Hey, thanks. So lots going on today, even since we on this afternoon. Impeachment proceedings now going to happen with Nancy Pelosi. Trump is going to release the transcript of the conversation that he had. A lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I guess with the impeachment proceedings going forward, we can assume that Congress will be doing actually nothing besides that for the next however long that takes.
Well, and that's not such a bad thing. It usually saves us all a bunch of money.
Yeah.
I was going to say, is that really all that bad?
I think it protects our liberties and saves us money when they do nothing.
This is actually, in my opinion, it could be wrong in this, Lindsey, but I think this is going to backfire on the Democrats. That's my own prediction.
I think it will, too. I guess the Senate unanimously voted today for Trump to release the transcripts, and that just shows, even the Republican majority in the Senate isn't afraid of these transcripts and what it's going to show. So I think that it's just going to be a sort of a game by the Democrats. We'll
I agree.
See how that works out for them.
Bring it back locally. What's happening here in our state?
Yeah, so here we have some new revenue estimates by the Legislative Fiscal Division and by the governor that are sort of bringing more light to what Proposition CC will mean for Coloradans should it pass or not pass. So we talked a couple weeks ago about the exact numbers, like we talk about a refund of $1.3 billion over the next 3 years, but what does that mean for every individual Coloradan? And we have a little bit better idea of that.
Okay.
In 2019 specifically, which we will get, Proposition CC doesn't affect 2019.
Okay.
So early next year, we should be getting anywhere from $10 to $650. And that's a huge range, but it has to do with the governor having a much more rosy picture of the future economy than the fiscal people have come out with.
Okay, so I think this is something that gets confusing on most people's parts, mine included. When it comes to the refund, is that based upon what we've paid, or is it just a flat amount per person?
It's based upon what we've paid because different people in different tax brackets would get different amounts. Okay,
that makes sense. So it is based upon what we pay, which frankly it should be. If you paid more, you should get more back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and a majority of the refunds actually go towards local governments first to cover some property tax exemptions for seniors and disabled veterans. So that's where the majority of that goes.
Okay. Where are we at on Prop CC at this point?
So ballots drop October 15th, and then we're in an all-out push to try to make sure Coloradans understand what the ballot language actually means, because the ballot language is really not our friend. The more that people hear about Proposition CC and what it is, the less they like it. So, and that's because the legislature really plays by its own rules, and there's no way this ballot language would have made it on if it was brought by anyone else. But it doesn't even mention the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. It says it's not a tax increase when the government is keeping and spending potentially billions more of our tax dollars. So it's really insincere ballot language, so we have to make sure that people know what it really means.
Yeah, in fact, we talked about this, I know, in the past. We should actually bring this up again, because the exact language, I want to make sure that I actually get this. So the exact, and do you have it in front of you, Lindsey? I don't want to step on you if you do.
No, I can pull it up, but go ahead.
Okay, so I'm looking at the actual, I want to see the actual wording. Full text. Geez, why don't they just make this easy?
It starts off without raising taxes.
Okay, that's the verbiage I'm looking for. Why? Okay, here. This is another. By the way, just a side note. When it's this hard to find what it actually says, that's usually not an indication it was written correctly. Without raising taxes, and to better fund public schools, higher education, roads, bridges, and transit within a balanced budget, may the state keep and spend all the revenue it annually collects after June 30th, 2019, but is not currently allowed to keep and spend under Colorado law, which, by the way, it should say under Tabor, with an annual independent audit to show how the retained revenues are spent. That's the actual ballot language right there. And it's, by the way, as you said, Lindsey, very misleading.
Very misleading. And it's only is getting to voters because it went through the Democrat legislature and not the normal ballot initiative process.
Okay, say that again. Explain that for everybody. I understand what you just said, but I don't think everybody else does.
So the legislature passed this bill to put this on the ballot, and it was signed, and that's just another avenue for something to get on the ballot.
That's right.
Another detail of that is that it puts it as a statute. It doesn't change the Constitution because there weren't quite enough votes in the legislature to make it a constitutional change. So it's just a change to
statutory
the statute,
change,
which means, right.
But what you're saying is, to make sure everybody understands this did not go through all of the signature gathering process like, say, we use when it comes to the popular vote. It wasn't that same process to get on the ballot. The legislature, the Democrat legislature, essentially wrote the language, passed it, and it's now going to be on the ballot, correct?
Correct. And it only got enough votes in the legislature to be a statute change, not a constitutional change. Which makes a difference to us,
yes, because then it could be reversed.
Right. It can put that money towards anything in the future, which is one of the biggest problems with this. I mean, we saw in Ref C that passed in 2005, which was a temporary giving of our Tabor tax refunds, whereas this would be permanent. But that in that case, twice as much money was spent on programs outside of what Referendum C said. So in other words, Ref C was supposed to go towards healthcare, education, and roads. But twice as much was spent on other areas. So they would take money, that money did go to transportation, for example, but then other existing funds were taken out of transportation and put somewhere else, which is just so disingenuous. And it's the reason we still have such big problems with our transportation system.
Yes, that among many other things.
Many reasons.
Okay, what else is going on locally? Prop CC is and I don't want to take anything away from that because that is a very major issue, but we have other things going on inside of the state as well. What are you hearing when it comes to the next session as to some of the things we may expect to see, or have you heard anything yet?
Well, there's definitely rumblings. I think that healthcare will be a big one. I'm hoping that Prop CC fails and that they'll have to address transportation will be a major thing. So those are the two of the things that we're going to be looking at here. Got it.
Okay. And by the way, folks, that ballot language starts off saying without a tax increase, but the reality is that's exactly what it is, right, Lindsey?
That's correct. Yeah, and I just wanted to shout out to anyone listening. The next week or so, if you're involved in any groups, political or community-oriented, and you want someone to come and speak about Proposition CC, we are happy to do so. We have a coalition of groups that someone would be happy to do so. So please reach out to Colorado Rising Action. And just throwing something at you, if you need other people that are willing to go out and speak on it, I think by now you know that I know enough about it to where I could actually do that fairly well. Not bragging, but we've talked about that enough here. If you need other bodies that will go and do that, be sure to let me know. I would be happy to help in that area. Great, thank you.
I mean, honestly, we have got to defeat this thing because this is the only thing keeping things in check in our state right now. They do this; it's just one more chip away at them having unrealistic spending measures. They can just go hog wild again, and they will continue to do so if we allow it.
Yeah, they'll be totally out of control.
That's right.
Absolutely. And real quick, there was another Tabor court ruling this week that really just avoided clarifying the difference between a tax and a fee. And that's why our fees keep increasing because more and more can go under that fee umbrella. But what we really want to do is have some sort of ballot initiative in the next few years that gives voters a say on fees over a certain amount. So in the same way that the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, we have a vote that if it was a fee over, say, $50 million, it would have to go to voters.
Yes, thank you. That would be awesome. Because if for everybody listening, just to make sure I reiterate what Lindsey's saying, if you go in to register your vehicle, okay, you go to your county clerk and you register your vehicle to get license plates renewed or new, and you run down the line of all of the different fees, which is exactly what they're called, Lindsey, that's exactly what you're talking about. Had what you just said been in effect, the majority of what's on your license plate, registration and the amount of money that we're spending, a lot of that would not be there because most of those were passed on as fees when in fact they're a tax.
Absolutely, and that money was supposed to be the saving grace for our transportation system, and it's worse than ever.
That's right. So that's a prime example of how they can set something as a fee. It's really a tax. They get around Tabor, and they can go hog wild with the spending and not even put it towards what they said they were going to.
That's exactly right.
Well said. Lindsey, keep up the great work, and if you want to take me up on my offer, let me know. Send Cassie a message, and we'll get that figured out. I'd be happy to help any way I can.
Will do. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Lindsey. Appreciate it very much, and I mean that. I think I know enough about this. I would do it.
I think you'd be really good at it. However, bike